This presentation, titled Darwin's Original Concept of Survival of the Fittest, discusses the meaning of the Darwinian phrase survival of the fittest, as well as the multiple developments that arose for Darwin and within the scientific community as a result of Darwin's findings. To begin, the meaning behind survival of the fittest must first be understood. Darwin coined this phrase as a way of describing the process of natural selection. This is the process in which only the most fit organism to their immediate environment survives in order to pass on their genes. This is often interpreted as the survival of the form that will leave the most copies of itself in successive generations. In defining this phenomenon, Darwin made a monumental scientific discovery. Darwin discovered here that population growth creates competition for survival, which then leads to only the most favorable variations being passed down over time. This essentially describes the process of evolution. Once Darwin released these discoveries, the public reaction was vast, and the interpretations behind the meaning of this Darwinian phrase surpassed Darwin's original intentions. Due to the general lack of information at the time surrounding evolutionary theory, many people disagreed with Darwin's findings. Many of these individuals felt that if this phenomenon were true, humans were no better than the plants and animals subject to these laws. This was a thought process heavily inspired by the teachings of the Church. No matter how negative the reaction to this information was, however, no one could produce an alternative theory that disproved Darwin. This is when the applications of this phrase began to be tested. Social Darwinism applied survival of the fittest in a societal context. Believers in social Darwinism felt that collective competition would destroy unfavorable variance within a society. This was similar to the economic policy of laissez-faire, which called for hands-off economic regulation and implied that any problem within society will be resolved over time by the results of unbiased competition. What many believers of social Darwinism failed to account for, however, were the multiple other factors that contribute to a functional society. These factors include quality of life. Those who were able to make this distinction identified an important property of the scientific process involving the variability of qualitative considerations. This realization made it easier for some to identify other misinterpretations of survival of the fittest. As controversy swirled surrounding Darwin's discovery, his name only grew in recognition. Regardless of if his discoveries were believed or not, Darwin still developed into a household name. This led to Darwinian and Darwinism becoming words that literally define his discoveries. This made Darwin an icon not only in the field of evolutionary discovery, but in the scientific community as a whole. His book, On the Origin of Species, later became referred to as one of the few books that changed the world. This was due to the wave of uncertainty that followed the publishing of his work. Not only did Darwin's findings set the stage for future thinkers to run new tests, but he also managed to identify a societal phenomenon that is more telling of our existence than anyone before him knew. Developments that arose from Darwin's original phrase, survival of the fittest, expanded far further than anyone originally anticipated. This phrase not only marked a cornerstone in evolutionary understanding, but defined an important time in the development of scientific theory and approach as well.